Hello, I'm Joseph Botelho of the Botelho Law Group, and in this installment of Massachusetts Landlords Training Series, we will be going over security deposits and last month's rent. So, you want to know about security deposits and last month's rent if you're a Massachusetts landlord. This is the video that will be going over all of that. But make sure you check the links below to visit the blog on this subject, which will go over this material in much more detail. Starting off, what can you ask for when starting a tenancy? There are 4 things that you can ask for. You can ask for the first month's rent. You can also ask for last month's rent, which cannot be any more than first month's rent. You could ask for a security deposit, which once again cannot be more than first month's rent. And also you can ask for the cost of the installation of a new set of keys and locks for the door. Those are the only things you are allowed by Massachusetts state law to request from your tenants. You cannot ask for a multiple last month's rent. I've seen that happen, where instead of requesting a security deposit, they take 2 last month's rent. That is illegal. You also can't take anything else other than the 4 things that we've already mentioned. This is on move-in, beginning the tenancy. You cannot ask for anything more than we've already mentioned here. When accepting a security deposit in Massachusetts, there are some very important rules that you must follow. First of all funds must be deposited in an interest-bearing account that is set up as an escrow account, meaning it has to be separate from your personal funds. You should, best practices is keep all clients' security deposits in a separate account for each tenant. You should not commingle any funds whatsoever. This is one of the problems that most landlords mess up on. You cannot simply just put it in a checking account with your name on it and hold it, or put it in an operating account with other funds that you use to manage your income properties, anything like that. It must be in a separate interest-bearing account that you should establish, that's specifically set up for security deposits for Massachusetts income properties. This is specific to residential property, not commercial property. If you sell your property to another landlord, you must transfer that entire security deposit with interest to the new landlord. If you're the new landlord and you're buying a property, make sure you find out if there were any security deposits received by the previous landlord, that you receive all of that money at closing. Do not wait till after closing, because you'll be having to go and chase people down for that. I've already seen cases where someone had just bought a building and they had to evict someone, and because the previous landlord did not transfer the security deposit to them, and the security deposit was $1,000, they ended up paying $3,000. They had no idea the security deposit was paid to the previous landlord. The tenant never mentioned it to them until they were getting evicted. Then they brought it up at court. And because they did not do the proper course of action, which here, if you're being asked for a security deposit, you better give it back in less than 30 days with interest, or you're going to get hit with treble damages, which are triple damages. That's essentially automatic in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So make sure you follow that rule and actually all of these rules. The next thing is you must provide the tenant with a deposit slip. The deposit slip needs to list the bank, needs to list the account number, needs to list the address where it's at, all of the information so the tenant may know exactly where their security deposit is located. You must provide this to them. You must also present them with a statement of condition of damages. We have, if you visit the link below to our blog on this subject on our website, there are actually examples of these forms. But essentially what this is you need to have proof of what every room in the property you're renting to that particular tenant, which you accepted a security deposit with. You must both sign off on the document that dictates exactly what every room in the house's condition is. If there's a scratch on the wall, if there's a hole in the wall, if the paint is chipped, if there's a problem with the window, if there's a stain on the carpet, anything that could go wrong in the apartment, damage anything. Make sure it's on one of these statements, make sure it's filled out properly, make sure it's filled out completely, and make sure the tenant signs off on everything. This is going to be required. People take security deposits all the time, but when it's time to try to collect on it, how do you prove that the tenant did that damage? You must follow these rules to the letter of the law. I will be having another video just on this subject, but what you basically need to know is it's critical for you to have every room listed, and if there's any damage in that room or any stains on the carpet, anything must be enumerated in there, and the tenant must sign off on it accepting that that's the condition. This way, when the tenant moves out and you're going to use the security deposit to fix damage that the tenant caused, you have proof that that damage was not there when the tenant moved in. Also, the tenant may provide you with a list of damages, or you provide them with a list of damages within 15 days of moving in, and both parties sign off on it. Personally, to me, I do not like this. I think this should be done prior to anyone moving in. Regardless of the circumstances, I know one tenant's moving out, the other tenant's moving in. You're going to have a million excuses why this is going to be a pain. Don't make excuses. Make sure this is done before they move in. The law allows this to happen within the first 15 days. I'm just stating that to you because it actually is the law. But don't do it this way. Make sure this has been completed prior to the tenant ever moving in. And finally, if you do in fact pay obtain a security deposit from your tenant and you put it in an interest-bearing account, you must pay your tenant 5% yearly interest on that, or the interest that the bank that you deposited in gives you, whichever is less. So if the bank gives more than 5%, which is never, but let's say you do have a bank that will give more than 5% on this, you're only obligated to return 5% to the tenant. If the bank that you're depositing the money in only gives 0.5%, 1.5%, you're only required to give the actual interest that the bank you deposited the funds in has given to you. Make sure you keep all of the accounting, have all paperwork to establish this. This is critical. Once again, we will have another video on that subject, keeping good records. All of these videos and every subject matter that we're putting in it is from years of experience, knowing what most landlords get in trouble with. And we're starting off with the big one, security deposits, and also not as much, but last month's rent. We will go into last month's rent a little more. But right now, what we're discussing are security deposits, and these are the 6 rules you must follow. If you don't follow these rules, when you go to court, you will get hit with treble damages. That's 3 times the amount. So to put that in perspective, if your security deposit was $1,000, you don't follow all these rules to the letter of the law, you're going to be paying $3,000 back. So make sure you follow these rules perfectly. And finally, last month's rent. You think this was going to be easy? No, it's not. Not quite as difficult as a security deposit, but there's only one less requirement. So follow these rules to the letter. This is critical. If you're going to actually accept last month's rent from a tenant, first of all, it cannot be more than the first month's rent. That's critical. You must also provide the tenant with an itemized list which clearly states the amount of the rent, the address of the property, who the rent will be paid to, and who is the interest going to be paid to. Those are very critical. Not as strict as security deposits, but taking a last month's rent, there are a lot of rules to follow. Also, you must request that the tenant provides you with a forwarding address. This is for being able to return any portion of that amount. If you have to return a certain percentage of interest, anything, it is critical at the beginning that you get a forwarding address. Now, you also have to pay, just like you did with the security deposit, you have to pay interest. It's the same 5% or whatever the interest is from the bank that you used. The least of the two is what you owe. Just like before, if they give you 5% at the bank, you have to give the tenant back 5%. They only give you 1.5% at the bank, you only have to give 1.5%. If they gave you 10% at the bank, you're only responsible for 5%. But the only difference between this and a security deposit is it does not have to be kept in an escrow account. You can actually keep this funds with your other operating accounts for your income property, but you do have to be able to show where the money is, and you also have to show the interest that the money did gain. So in all actuality, if you are going to get a security deposit and you're going to collect last month's rent, put that in the same escrow account. If not, then the last month's rent can stay wherever it is that you want to stay, as long as you have a means of being able to accurately calculate the interest that money did gain. So we've gone over security deposits and last month's rent. In conclusion, I always inform my clients/landlords, do not accept a security deposit unless you're planning on going through all of the strict requirements I laid before you. Believe me, no matter what, if you get caught in housing court and the issue of the security deposit comes up, regardless of all the other things the tenant did, the judge is going to focus on that. So when you're going to housing court, you need to have clean hands. As a landlord, you're held to a much higher standard in Massachusetts than the tenants. So if you go into this with problems with security deposits, problems with your last month's rent, there's a number of other problems that can occur, such as sometimes landlords have 3 family and only 3 electric boxes, meaning one of the tenants or all the tenants are paying for common areas. That's another problem. We'll have another video on that. But for now, we're dealing with the 2 most common problems that landlords have, and that's security deposits and last month's rent. Please visit our blog and you'll get a much more in-depth explanation and list of what you need to follow. So, this is Attorney Joseph Botelho of the Botelho Law Group, and this is our Massachusetts Landlord Training series, and this has been security deposits and last month's rent. Thank you and have a good day. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button and subscribe to our channel. Also, click the notification bell to get future videos that we'll be putting out. And please share our content on social media.